Hello, people. We are live. The first pre-game show. Now, I don't know how much of a preamble to do because it's pre-game, and we have less than an hour until the Seahawks actually get started. But time for my 17 past 12 coffee. Tell a friend. We're trying something new. Hopefully, you are interested in this. I've got massive topics. We've got game day inactives. We've got Matt Patricia getting promoted. Snaking, maybe, Sean Desai. See how that plays out. We've got a very big time Geno Smith thing. But the massive news that we all want to talk about is Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times reporting that Pete Carroll's outfit today involves a hat. Now, Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times, a very good journalist, of course. Great guy as well. I've happened to meet Bob in person when I was in Munich. However, Bob's phrasing, let me get this tweet up. Bob's phrasing slightly misleading. Oh my gosh, that's inappropriate. This is what what happens when I go live on. Elon, fix your damn app out. Oh god, now I'm back on it, but you can't see that. Don't worry. Let me go to Twitter's too risky. I'm going to end up getting demonetized or something. Let me actually just get to a safe version of this. No shame here. Okay, I think the tweet is safe now. Let me get back to the tweet. Hey, I provide entertainment on here. Bob Condotta reporting Pete Carroll appears to be wearing a hat. Needs someone who keeps track of that to recite what Seattle's Pete in a hat record is. Well, Pete Carroll wearing a baseball cap is 3-0 in his career. The last time he wore a baseball cap was the Washington Commanders home game, which Seattle managed to win. So major news if that is correct. And obviously how you can find that out, Ty Dane Gonzalez, who does the podcast with me, he has the Pete Carroll fit tracker. But if this is a woolly hat, and I know it's cold in Seattle, I imagine it's winter. If it's a woolly hat, then the record may be slightly different. But that's obviously the big news of this. Let me actually get up Ty Dane Gonzalez, the fit tracker. And see what Pete Carroll's record is in a woolly hat. But I'm sure it is a cap. While I do that, the other noteworthy news is, of course, Geno Smith is active for this game. Obviously, I heard around the Seahawks quarterback that it would be a 2-week timeline, something I spoke about with Ben Solak when we previewed this Eagles matchup. But even before that, Adam Schefter was reporting a 2-week timeline as well. That would obviously mean missing this game like he did in the last 49ers matchup. But no, Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith is active for this game. Adam Schefter, though, after everyone got excited, all the beat reporters were tweeting that Geno Smith had come on the field, gone through warm-ups, came on slightly later than the Seahawks. Adam Schefter reporting, just because Geno Smith is active does not mean he's starting. The Seahawks are dressing 3 quarterbacks tonight, but have not announced the starter. So Seattle keeping it shady right up to the wire. It could be that the plan is for Geno Smith to have gone through all this warm-ups to kind of obfuscate who is the starting quarterback, who isn't. That being said, there's no official word yet on who's starting. Seattle did activate Sean Mannion from their practice squad like they did in the previous week. So they're keeping it cloudy. I don't know if Geno would go through every single drill, all the throwing, if his groin wasn't ready to go. So, I mean, it's massive news. And if Geno is the quarterback playing, one, it obviously gives Seattle the best chance to win this football game. It's a must-win game for them tonight. I really want to see if Geno can build on the play that he did against Dallas, where he absolutely was superb, wasn't he? The way that he was able to find those receivers, and I know he hasn't quite beat the indoor accusations. The fact, obviously, that game came in a dome, but if the offense can also kind of build on that game where the receivers are given like kind of some more logical concepts, they're, actually convert on third down and execute largely on third down and don't just completely crap the bed. I mean, that would be nice as well. Now, why is this a must-win game for Seattle? Well, if they win it, it would move them to 7-7 on the season. And week 15 went really well for Seattle. Why did it go really well? Well, the Vikings lost, moving them to 7-7. That's something Seattle absolutely needed to happen. The Vikings still have to play the Detroit Lions twice. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Green Bay Packers, so the Packers are now 6-8, real significant again. The Rams won, but at this point, with the Rams winning and how kind of functional they look, their offense doing good things with Matt Stafford and their defense kind of overperforming the talent, or at least the expectations of the talent, and them holding the kind of double header over the Seahawks, it really does feel as though the Rams are kind of clear of Seattle, and Seattle's kind of vying for that 7th seed spot. And also another nice thing from that week was the Atlanta Falcons managed to lose to the Panthers, so they're 6-8. And the NFC South looks like a bit of a mess because whoever wins that division is going to have like a record around 500. But then the second place team could, right now it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers leading at 7-7, and then the Saints in second place at 7-7. So Seattle needs some losses in that area, but it's a really good start for them. Now, in terms of like needing to win this game, obviously you never want to lose 5 games in a row. That's never going to be good, is it? But also, if you look at the New York Times playoff odds projection, the playoff picture, that I know before this week, they gave the Seahawks a 21% chance of making the playoffs. Just from the results so far in week 15, that 21% chance number has risen to 33%. So very, very, very significant. I don't have an update on how this affects Seattle from a playoff perspective. Let me try and find that. Here we go. So if the Seahawks win tonight, and I don't know if this has been updated for the rest of the week 15 games that have happened, but if they win tonight, the New York Times has their playoff odds at 56%. If they lose tonight, their playoff odds fall from that 31% number to 15%. So, from that 35% playoff number to 15%. So they lose 20% percentage points if they lose tonight. And it's looking slim. So win tonight, and then suddenly you win next week at the Titans, and that number's already at 71% chance of making the playoffs. Or 72%, sorry. So it can massively, massively soar. So huge game, and the fact that Geno Smith is active, and even with Adam Schefter's reporting, which, he's surely influenced by that 2-week time frame he heard for Geno Smith's groin injury that I also heard. But if they are able to play tonight, able to play, if he's able to play, if Seattle's able to win, that's really big. Now, Geno Smith is going to be going up against a Eagles defense that is looking very different suddenly. Odd reporting around this. Really odd reporting. So it sounds like defense coordinator Sean Desai is now going to be up in the booth. But he's not going to be calling the plays because Matt Patricia on the Eagles staff is going to be on the sideline with the headset calling the plays in. Now, the Philadelphia Inquirer's Jeff McLean reported that a reason for this demotion was Desai was basically someone that didn't come across confident to the players. He said, Sean's smart and the guys like him, but he doesn't carry himself with confidence, a team source said. And some players started to feel that. I know when we talked to Ben Solak, he kind of explained that, Sean Desai, they're not having a great season defensively, the Eagles. They're really, really struggling. it was one area that I felt kind of positive about Seattle versus them. And like in total points, the two teams aren't that different. Eagles coming in at 14th in total points per SIS. Oh, sorry, Eagles coming in at 12th in total points per SIS. Seattle coming in at 14th, and a big reason for that was the defense. But Ben Solak pointed out as well, they're paying their DBs quite a lot of money, and they're not performing at cornerback. James Bradbury, Darius Slay inactive tonight because obviously he doesn't get along with Matt Patricia. But also just overall defense-wise, I mean, EPA per play, the Eagles are down at 30th. By comparison, Seattle's 25th. They've been really, really poor. While they've been a bit better against the run, it's the issues against the pass defense which have been a big problem. And again, that kind of comes back into talent. The fact that their linebackers are really, really not valued at all. So Patricia comes in, and I mean, is he the guy to fix it? I'm not so sure. I mean, 2017, when he's the Patriots defensive coordinator, they were 26th in EPA allowed per play, 30th in success rate, and they're 31st in yards per play allowed that season. Then when he was Detroit Lions head coach, and his players all kind of hated him, didn't they? All spoke out about him. I mean, remember how Seattle ended up getting Quandre Diggs in the trade? The Lions were 31st in EPA per play added during that 2018 to 2020 stretch. So, awful defense. How much realistically can Matt Patricia change, taking over in a week? And they'll have known this is going to happen. He'll have had a fair bit of time to prepare. They have an extra day because it's a Monday. Not much can change necessarily, but that kind of confident thing. I mean, Patricia probably is confident in being him, and maybe he's the kind of arsehole type character that they're looking for on the sideline compared to Desai. But, yeah. I think really this is kind of, it could be a new coach kind of spurring the Eagles into something, but it also, could go the other way. It's the type of dysfunction that Seattle's offense can prey on. So let me catch up with the chat. Vince asking, is anyone else expecting a bunch of rush 3 drop 8 coverage with Matt Patricia making the Eagles defensive calls? Vince, I think that was more just because that's how he felt was best to play Russell Wilson. Although it didn't work very well, did it? What realistic adjustments do you think the Seahawks could have made over the past week to prepare for this game, says Axel? Well, Axel, what I'd say on that is, realistically, if Geno Smith is playing, I mean, as I said, he's active, then the adjustment's going to be Genoing up the offense again, and that means they'll call in a bit more stuff and be able to rely on a bit more stuff and not keep it as... they really did cater it to Drew Lock. Not that they didn't trust him, but there wasn't full field reads and stuff like that really going on. And there's a bit more movement stuff, a bit more RPO stuff in there for him. So the tape showed a really tough experience for Drew Lock, I have to say. Defensively, I mean, one thing is just game plan wise, the Eagles struggle against cover 0. Now, Seattle rarely uses cover 0. And when they have done in the past, they've really struggled doing it. So there's, attacking an opponent, but then you don't want to make yourself worse. I think the main thing on defense, I mean, I know Jamal Adams is out tonight. I've barely really spoke about that, and we will talk about that topic. But they'll just look to execute better. So you'd hope to see adjustment-wise, it's not necessarily an adjustment, but a point of emphasis of, pre and post snap real communication. Now the Eagles kind of line up and play a bit more, which makes that easier. But hopefully there's just no outright busts, no outright just poor assignment play. And if they do get beat, the Eagles are going to try and do it in one-on-one situations. Monjombo, it feels like if they win this, they're in the playoffs. If they don't, they're as good as out. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's reflected in the data, right? That if they lose, it's 15% odds of making the playoffs. If they win, it's over 50%. Monjumbo, Saints play the Rams, so I think they shouldn't be a threat. Yeah, I was looking at week 16, and the fact that the Saints play the Rams, that's kind of a win-win for Seattle, isn't it? I think you'd prefer, all in all, for the Rams to beat the Saints, because 7-7 Saints falling to 7-8 would be nice. But also, obviously, the Saints losing helps that draft pick between Seattle getting the worst off draft pick of the Denver Broncos and the New Orleans Saints, and so they want the Saints and the Broncos to lose as many games as possible. Obviously, if the Rams win, you can take it. If the Rams lose, you can take it too. But I think the Saints better suit Seattle. That's a nice matchup for them next week. Noigash, it was a mistake to let another team join the playoffs at the 7th seed. The quality is just bad. Yeah, I agree. 17th game of the season. The 7th seed. 6 seeds on each side was perfect, wasn't it? Because you know that 6th seed team, like if that's the Rams, because if the Rams continue on their trajectory, for instance, they look like a quite a fun, potentially frisky team who might not quite have it. The 7th seed, you just invite all this trash. I mean, the hope is if Seattle wins tonight, then they can put together a winning run, and then they're hot for the playoffs. They are potentially frisky, and if they've put together a winning run, they've kind of corrected the issues which have plagued them for a lot of the season, you would think. So then that's the argument for the 7th seed, that you've kind of let 2 frisky teams in. But right now, with the kind of contenders on the fringes of the NFC, it's bad. It's really bad. And the NFC South abomination, my word. TSM, a 7th seed is not as valuable as the draft position we gained by losing. It would be best now to lose out. I completely disagree. That's not a... You're in it to win it, and you just don't know. If you get in as a 7th seed, like I said, if Seattle gets in a 7th seed this year, that means they'll have corrected a lot of issues, and they'll have got hot in some areas, and then you have to hope that your health is okay, you're in a good spot that wise, and then suddenly you could go a lot deeper in the playoffs than you expect. And drafting is never a definite thing. Kaibo or Kibo, apologies if I've mispronounced your name. I'll go with Kaibo. What kind of schematic differences do you expect now that Matt Patricia is play calling? Like I said, I don't think you can change much in a week. I mean, like I said, as it sounds, it's probably just he's just going to call in the play, not back down to players, probably not be probably just be an arsehole. I mean, they were running quite a lot of odd fronts anyway, which is the one thing that Patricia would, you would expect him maybe to lean on. It's probably just being more assertive on the sideline. Vince, I don't think Clint Hurt lacks being confident, and I wouldn't call him an arsehole, but I think Clint Hurt is very upfront with players. I mean, I've managed to watch a clinic of Clint Hurt's. He's a very direct coach, which is a good thing. You want to be a direct communicator. You don't want to be wishy-washy with people. You need to outline your expectations from the front. But, I mean, he's a D-line coach, put it that way. Robert, I don't think the defensive coordinator change should limit the Seattle offense. There may be 1 or 2 wrinkles that is thrown in, but I really don't want to overstate this too much. I think if it was maybe next week, perhaps more impactful, but you can't reinvent the wheel in a week. The call sheet will look very, very similar because they've only got a certain amount of plays installed, a certain amount of coverages, etc. All right, Duck on Quack asking, Jamal Adams inactive, injury or performance? I haven't seen any reports. Let's talk about that. So the other big news from the game day inactives, both Jamal Adams, the Seahawks strong safety when they're in base, which they don't run that often, and then the Seahawks big nickel when they play big nickel, and then the Seahawks strong safety when they play normal nickel, inactive tonight with the knee, which he's been dealing with throughout the season. He tore his quadriceps tendon off his kneecap and then recovered remarkably, but it's been biting. He described it after, I think it was the Giants Monday Night Football game, and clearly kind of impacting his movement skills, hurting him throughout the season. He's inactive tonight. And also, rookie sensation, 5th overall pick, Devin Witherspoon. We're not going to see that massive matchup between him and Jalen Carter, unfortunately, tonight. He is also inactive with the hip point injury he suffered last week at the 49ers, which knocked him out the game early via the friendly fire of Jamal Adams. So Seattle without both their nickels. Now, Jamal Adams is inactive. I think duck on quack. We'll never know the story behind the scenes. I think there's probably been a candid conversation between him and Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll he said in the week, something along the lines of he wants to protect him so that he's playing his best football. I think they've probably had a discussion about the pain he's been playing through. I think you kind of explore, really, you want to get to the truth of why something happens. Why did that bust happen against Deebo Samuel when Jamal Adams has been able to play that assignment absolutely fine? Well, he's kind of at the sticks. He's looking for the in-cut. But I think when you're struggling pain-wise, you start overplaying certain things, you start having to cheat certain things, and you lose the kind of ability also to burst, accelerate, and change direction as well as you used to be able to. And I think all of those things are probably the truth and the reason why that sort of mistake happens. So I think the injury's been impacting his performance. And Pete Carroll phrased it as, I want to protect the player to be at his best. So maybe a 1 week breather, maybe 2 week. Excuse me, let me have a sip of water. Maybe a 2 week deal. We'll have to see. But a big loss for Seattle because it does impact them. Now, Devin Witherspoon obviously plays in the slot more than Jamal Adams does. Jamal Adams plays the strong safety spot more often for Seattle, and Witherspoon plays in the nickel, and then left corner Trey Brown comes in. He's active tonight, been dealing with a heel injury. Or Michael Jackson plays the left corner spot. But with Witherspoon out, this creates a big opportunity because you're without both the inside players for Seattle. Who steps up? Well, Kobe Bryant, who saw his first action since he left was it week 1 he got injured against the Rams? But he's probably the first candidate. Now, Kobe Bryant played preseason as the strong safety, and then when Jamal Adams wasn't ready to go in week 1, he played in the nickel spot as well. No, he played the strong safety spot, but he had nickel experience from last year. So he can do both things. Obviously, Seattle, if they want to play Kobe Bryant in the nickel role, they can play Julian Love and Quandre Diggs. Julian Love is the strong safety, Quandre Diggs is the free safety. And I think Kobe Bryant is probably going to be the full-time nickel. That will create, Trey Brown as the left corner. You might also see Michael Jackson as the left corner, or we might also see Michael Jackson working on the right side with Reek Woolen, who has been struggling. I know Pete Carroll was impressed with Mike Jackson's playing time, and against the 49ers last week, he got on the field, and he maybe has earned an opportunity. So Kobe Bryant kind of is the fix-all solution. I saw also Tyler Carter got called up from the practice squad. That the safety, he was kind of a big special team in the preseason. That's kind of how he made the roster. I mean, he's emergency insurance, but ultimately he's called up for his special teams play. So yeah, it'll be Kobe Bryant playing the nickel, the big nickel. The other option is if you want more bulk and more size and more of like a linebacker type there, maybe more of a Jamal Adams type. While Kobe Bryant can do that in the slot, you could call on Devin Bush, the linebacker, to play there. Now, Devin Bush has actually played the big nickel for Seattle versus the Rams. So, and there was maybe another team as well. But he could play in the big nickel. And this is very interesting. So, Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times reporting that the starting secondary in warm-ups is Julian Love and Quandre Diggs at safety. No surprises there. And then Trey Brown at left cornerback, Michael Jackson at right cornerback. So Reek Woolen has been seemingly benched. And, Pete Carroll's comments did hint at that. So Reek Woolen benched, Michael Jackson is the starter at right corner. That doesn't change any of what I was saying about the safeties and nickels. And Kobe Bryant played really well in the preseason as the strong safety. He had a tough moment against the 49ers, which it just looked like a guy who wasn't quite up to speed again last week. Pete Carroll has worn a beanie hat. I promised you I'd get a beanie hat update. Pete Carroll has worn a beanie 4 times and is 2-2, which is why we need to see if it's a cap, he's 3-0. But if it's a beanie or like a woolly hat, he's 2-2. So we need an update on what type of headwear Pete Carroll is wearing tonight. Bob Condotta not specifying, just saying hat. Now, Brady Henderson just reported that the Seahawks are going through stretches on the field and he didn't see Geno Smith in a uniform anywhere. A few minutes ago, it was only Drew Lock and Sean Mannion going through warm-ups. That would suggest Drew Lock is the starting quarterback. Oh dear. Now, the problem I have with Drew Lock is his moments of just crazy inaccuracy. Now, he did some good stuff against the 49ers. They tried to test him with blitzes. He kind of recognized what was going on. It was clear he was kind of seeing the whole field. He alerted to logical plays. It wasn't too quick for him, it didn't seem. But just like leading guys inside, like the pick he threw, where he leads it inside when the only way to throw that ball, like he read the coverage, or maybe he didn't, but the only way to throw that ball is high and outside. Why did he drift it inside? There's a few other misses too where the inaccuracy is just startling. And there's a few things just read progression wise. You're like, he left a lot of opportunities on the field, and it's more kind of, it doesn't help him either because the contrast from Geno Smith, who often when we watch the tape, we will criticize him for his mistakes, but a lot of the time it feels logical what he's doing out on there from a process standpoint of I get this, then I do this, etc., etc. It looks like the kind of perfect quarterback, something the ringer Stephen Ruiz spoke about with us earlier in the season. But Drew Lock is he doesn't do that. Yeah. But what is nice about this, if Drew Lock is the starter, last week against the 49ers, as much as Pete Carroll and Drew Lock were like, yeah, I had enough time, he had one full practice, working with the starting ones, being the projected starter for the game. That is tough. That is so tough. And especially when as the backup quarterback, while you are preparing for action and you're preparing as though you're the starter, because like tonight, you might be called upon in any moment, you don't get to work with the first string guys. You don't get to throw the ball to Tyler Lockett. You don't get to throw the ball to DK Metcalf. It's rough. Drew Lock, it sounds like, is the starter tonight. And he will have been able to work with Tyler Lockett, been able to work with DK Metcalf, been able to work with the first string offensive line, the first string backs. And so this is really his audition against a really poor defense by NFL standards, even though they have a very talented looking D-line. Their kind of organizational philosophy has been get the D-line and then work out the rest a bit later. Draft the D-line high, spend money on the D-line. And, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, that's a fearsome interior trio, which is part of the reason why they've been running those bare fronts, right? Those odd fronts. But this is the chance for Drew Lock, to audition as the dude, to earn his NFL career, his NFL future. If he plays well tonight, then, I heard it was a 2-week injury for Geno Smith. Maybe that's the deal. Mike Dugar of the Athletic reporting Drew Lock's warming up with the first team offense, so that seems like a wrap. But yeah, this is like the statement game. Like, remember how Matt Flynn got paid? This is Drew Lock's opportunity, and he's had a full week now. this is his chance. So here we go. Let me Ty, who obviously created the Pete Carroll Fit Tracker, saying that he saw that Pete Carroll is wearing a cap. So a chance for Pete Carroll to go 4-0 wearing a baseball cap tonight. Very big. Have you got any questions in the chat? Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. It's great to have so many people in here. Matthew, did we talk about how they'll scheme the defense without Jamal Adams? So Matthew, obviously the scheme is designed to accent Jamal Adams, but it will largely be the same scheme. You might see a bit more inside backer blitzes rather than outside backer blitzes, but again, you can't change a defense in a night. You obviously can change things with the game plan, but with how they run the defense being an over front a lot of the time, and that kind of guide to the strength, which is technically the nickel, but it's like, if it's a 4-3, it'd be like the old Sam backer, right? Or the stud, you might call it. But it's kind of advantageous to keep bringing that guy off the edge occasionally and get that guy aggressive, just from the structure of the front, because it means you're basically bringing 3 off one side of the defensive formation. One more generally than the offense can block, one more to the point of attack, etc., etc. So Devin Bush, that suits. Kobe Bryant can do it. But while the defensive overall structure is something you can't change overnight, and is something which catered to Jamal Adams, possibly there's a few less plays where it's like, hey, we're blitzing you, maybe we'll blitz a different player. But I don't think there'll be a noticeable difference. So Kyle, just to confirm, the secondary for base and nickel tonight, well, with the news that Mike Jackson's been working with the first team, I kind of expected this anyway with Pete Carroll's comments about you'll see some changes personnel-wise. But it's going to be right cornerback Michael Jackson, not Reek Woolen. Reek Woolen benched. Pete Carroll's really impressed with Mike Jackson against the 49ers. Left corner will be Trey Brown. Strong safety will be Julian Love. Free safety will be Quandre Diggs. And then big nickel, probably Devin Bush, but I don't know if they'll play it because the nickel will be Kobe Bryant, and he has kind of that safety / corner kind of build. So he's a bit of both for them. It'll probably just be Kobe Bryant the whole time. The emergency would be Artie Burns, who's pure kind of more corner type. So there you go. Just to understand, says Kaibo, when you talk about shaded nose tackle, is that tantamount to even fronts? Not necessarily, Kaibo. So I'm trying to think when I mentioned a shaded nose. Some teams will play a shaded nose. When I talk about shaded nose from a Seattle perspective, kind of, yeah. But a shaded nose to me is just a guy who lines up on the outside shoulder of a center. But some teams will play an even front where the nose tackle plays on the inside shoulder of a guard. Like tonight, when you see the Eagles in that front, their forefront, their even front, that nose tackle be playing on the inside shoulder of a guard, like how Seattle did it last year. So, but generally, if you're in an odd front, Kaibo, the nose tackle will be head up in a zero tech on the center. But, Kaibo, you could have something which looks like an odd front where there's a shaded nose tackle, which would be like an under front. So, yeah, not always. But generally, yes. Ryan asked, do you think the Hawks... Hey, good to have a question from Twitter. Welcome, Twitter, or X. I didn't know you could do that on Twitter. That's great. Do you think the Seahawks are keeping the quarterback starter under wraps to play mind games with the Eagles? I mean, what would they lose, right? Absolutely. That's why Geno Smith walked all the way out, was slow to turn up, turned up, did all the drills, the throwing, the agility, etc., etc., and then the very last moment when the first string offense is out, getting their reps in just before the game, he doesn't play. So, yeah, that's obviously what they're doing, but. Yeah, nothing to lose for them. Owen Sullivan, why would Reek Woolen get benched? Owen, the tackling is a real problem. There's a play against the 49ers, which we looked at last week in the tape podcast, an explosive run play where Woolen has the opportunity to tackle McCaffrey as a cover 2 corner coming up as that kind of force player, even though he's not technically the force because the receiver's set, but he's definitely the secondary force player. He has the opportunity to make a tackle at about 4 yards, and he half-heartedly reaches an arm out and like touches him with his little finger. He busts his coverage again against play action, gets his eyes in the backfield in the exact same way he did the last season against the 49ers, in the exact same way that got the Seahawks coaching up their cornerback techniques differently, their footwork differently, and he busts it, and George Kittle gets open down the sideline for a touchdown when Reek Woolen's meant to have that deep third of the field. He's just not played well this year, and I feel bad for him because he had the knee scope operation. It meant he missed most of the offseason. The stuff where he was meant to be refining his game, he missed all of that. That's tough. He really kind of needed that because at the back half of the year prior, you kind of saw the rawness in his game. You saw how his athleticism had been letting him get away with a lot, but the rawness was creeping in. And then this year, officials started calling kind of his press technique a bit more aggressively. He got some hands to the face stuff. And it's clear his movement skills from that knee scope aren't quite up to where they were. And I don't know how long that kind of thing takes, but they don't look quite as good. Meanwhile, the technique's still pretty raw. He hasn't quite managed to work that up. And then you get the tackling thing where he had a shoulder issue, but now he still is really, really poor at the tackling. So ultimately, he's not making plays for Seattle against run or pass. And the plays which are there to be made, he's not making either. That's why he's benched. And Mike Jackson's coming in, who, I mean, Pete Carroll's always had a soft spot for. He did okay against the 49ers, challenged some kind of tough routes. But that's why. Who do I think will start on the offensive line tonight? It has been all over the place recently, asked Axel. Is this a discussion? I could be wrong on this, but I just presumed it would be Charles Cross, Damian Lewis, Evan Brown, Anthony Bradford, and Abraham Lucas, right? I could be off on that, but I mean the O-line, you're not right. The O-line has been a struggle this year. And as I've said, it's not to just rag on the O-line. Like, they've been put in some really tough spots. Robert asking, is there any chance that Draymond Jones plays more inside again? Robert, what's your thinking with that question? I don't think that really happens. The reason why is Uchenna Nwosu is such a massive loss for this team. And obviously, getting Leonard Williams in, Jaron Reed in. I think Seattle's best 4, from like a run D standpoint especially, is Draymond Jones playing on the edge. Boye Maffey playing on the other edge. Then Leonard Williams as the 3 tech and Jaron Reed as the nose tackle. But that's as a 4, right? If Seattle played more base, Robert, then Draymond Jones would be one of the inside guys. He could be like that big end Red Bryant type. You could have Leonard Williams as the 3, and then you could have Reed as the nose. And then the 2 outside backer types, well, you could have like Boye Maffey, you could have Darryl Taylor work in there. But yeah, basically Jones is more reliable as a run defender than Taylor. And a lot of the issues that they've had, well, not a lot of them, but some of the issues they've had have been Taylor's just not that solid as an edge setter. But also, it's hard to set the edge when you're light and you're kind of a speed rusher, especially on the early downs when you get heavier personnel in there. Maybe we do see more base usage from Seattle when the opposition personnel requires it. I don't think Philly really are that team, but I could be wrong. We might see tonight nickel bear. So penny, as the Fangio tree calls it, but 5 guys down at the line of scrimmage, 1 inside backer, 5 DBs out there. Pete Carroll always likes kind of using these odd looks, these as an odd front, odd numbered looks, not unusual. He likes using them against the mobile quarterbacks. The only time we've seen Penny this season, let me get this right, I think it's against the Giants when Daniel Jones was a threat, but that might have been base actually. And we also saw bare looks against the Ravens when Lamar Jackson's a mobile threat. So I know Hurts hasn't been running the ball very well this year, and he's been dealing with this knee thing, which hasn't shown up on injury reports. But yeah. Can the passing attack still thrive with Drew Lock? All the changes Philadelphia have made this week. Well, it should be able to. It should be able to at least cause problems. I mean, just from a basic player standpoint, Philly is reeling. Their pass defense is really, really poor. I don't know why this website doesn't work for me sometimes. Let me get up a different measure for this. But Seattle, they've got DK Metcalf, they've got Tyler Lockett, they've got Jackson Smith in Jigba. Their receiving tight ends. Noah Fant causes problems when you get him the kind of right routes and plays. The stuff they did against Dallas, stuff they should be able to hang their hat on more. One thing I'd say is I think Philly runs a fair bit of too high defenses, middle field open stuff. We'll have to see how Locke handles that. The problem is, can Seattle run the ball? And I know Philly has the 8th best run defense. And Seattle's run blocking has really struggled this season. I think they're 22nd efficiency-wise. So let me just get up Sports Info Solutions, its total point stuff. So entering week 15... Well, in total points, Philadelphia's pass coverage is 27th in total points per play. And their run defense is 18th in total points per play. So total points per play doesn't feel as positive about their run D. But, I mean, if you can't pass on this Philadelphia secondary, then I think they've got with Drew Lock, they've got to find some decent one-on-one matchups, some preferable routes, maybe take their play-action shots. Maybe that's how it happens. And I know it's been pointed out as well how slow the Eagles are secondary-wise. Darius Slay inactive tonight. I think we'll see Kaylee Ringo, the rookie. But yeah, Kevin Byard, Reed Blankenship, James Bradbury, and then Bradley Roby, they've all struggled this year. Oh, Vince, thank you very much for the donation. So if you're watching on YouTube, super chat feature, if you really want me to read your comment, or if you just want to support the show. Thank you, Vince. What are you expecting from our pass rush tonight? Well, Philadelphia has a damn good offensive line, don't they? Nothing's really changed there. And yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It would be nice for this to be like a Darrell Taylor game, obviously being at home. You're going to get the center point called out. I think Philadelphia has enough constraint plays, though. I mean, like the QB draw. I think Seattle's pass rush is going to be really worried about Hurts' mobility, meaning they won't be rushing as far upfield. They won't be getting after it as much. It might be a big kind of creeper pressure first game for Seattle where, they send a linebacker and drop a outside backer edge into coverage and kind of trying to speed up Hurts, simulate pressure on Hurts. But yeah, I'm not expecting much from Seattle's pass rush, to be honest with you, which is a miserable answer, but Jack, why is it the Seahawks don't sub in Devin Bush on passing downs for Bobby Wagner? Because they value Bobby Wagner's leadership, experience, veteran, savvy, coach on the field stuff. But it's a good question. Is there a particular defensive scheme that you feel would be a better fit for the talent we have on the roster? That's a scary profile picture. No. I mean, as much as I think the scheme is fine. I think the usage of different things is quite heavy-handed, like how much nickel they use, which is something I spoke about before, even against like personnel where they're much beefier. But a lot of the issues are more kind of individual play calling or like a game plan rather than like the scheme itself. I think maybe they lack wrinkles off the like base scheme, the roots of it. But yeah, it's been execution, communication, and then like the stuff off of the actual scheme. Oh, he did? He said that? When did he say that, Noigash? I haven't Noigash, I haven't seen that. I think you may have misread that. Oh. I see. So John Boyle, I didn't listen to this interview. John Boyle saying John Schneider says on the pregame show that Geno Smith had a little aggravation in practice this week. Didn't say he was actually starting at quarterback. Thank you, Noigash. I'll check that out. So that's John Boyle of Seahawks.com. Brady Henderson saying Geno Smith surprised the Seahawks with how good he looked in pre-game warm-ups. He noted that while Smith is active, they still have about an hour until kickoff to figure out who's going on. Oh. Well, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. Hold on. Let me... That's what John Schneider said. That sounds like a nightmare. Because, I mean, it depends when Geno Smith aggravated that groin. But if they were like preparing half the week or over half the week with Geno as the starter, and then Drew Lock comes, and then Drew Lock has to then, he's missed out on the first string snaps he could have benefited from. That's annoying. Will, I spoke about Trey and Michael Jackson earlier, but just the long and short of it with Reek Woolen is he didn't play well enough. And Mike Jackson did impress Pete Carroll last week. And Vince, I also spoke about Kobe Bryant and the chance of Devin Bush coming in for a 4-3 look. Vince, that's something that they've shown before this season. Devin Bush played the big nickel against the Rams, maybe a bit against another team too. It was a solution for one running back, 2 tight end looks. That might happen too. So yeah, there's definitely a high chance of that, but then they chose not to do it last week against the 49ers, so maybe not. Right. Well, I think this has been a success. We've had nearly 100 people in here, which is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. The game's about to... Oh, I'm still sharing my screen. The game's about to kick off. So thank you, everyone, so much for joining. If you like this, let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will be live after this with Griffin, reacting to hopefully the Seahawks winning this must-win game. Hope we've covered the key topics well. Doesn't sound like Geno Smith is playing, but he might. Despite being active, not playing. Sounds like the Seahawks... we know the Seahawks are about Jamal Adams and Kobe Bryant. And Matt Patricia being in for Sean Desai is maybe an interesting aspect, but I don't think it changes how they look. I think it maybe could change the kind of intangible nature of football. Michael Jackson benching Reek Woolen. He's in at the right corner spot. And this is a must-win game for the Seahawks, who, if they win the game, they fall... if they don't win the game, their playoff chances fall to 15% per the New York Times. If they win the game, their playoff chances increase to 52%. And the massive, biggest news of the lot tonight, Pete Carroll is wearing a baseball cap. He is 3-0 in baseball caps. That obviously means that the Seahawks must-win game is being won. I'll see you after the game. Enjoy the game. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Vince, for the donation. Good to see some new names, some returning names, some Twitter names, some YouTube names. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the game.